The Learned Miss Fleming by Agnes G. Brogan. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Matt Perard. The Learned Miss Fleming by Agnes G. Brogan. "Why I should always be delegated to this highbrow stuff," complained Billy Atkins, "I don't understand. Interviewing the authoress in her lair and all that. Here's this Fleming person, spells her name Helene, writer of treatises on domestic science and director of something in schools. Now what questions can I ask her? Why don't they send a man like Brothers?" "Been there," answered Brothers laconically. "Sent me because I wear glasses. But it would be easier to find audience with the Kaiser than to be admitted to the presence of the learned Helene. Saw her, though, from a distance. She was sitting upon an upper veranda, evidently correcting proof. That's the nearest I got." "Severe looking?" anxiously queried Billy. "No name for it," answered Brothers. "Forbidding's the word. Thought if I could see the niece I'd get in. The two Miss Flemings are rusticating out there together, but Miss Niece was probably avoiding the wily reporter." "Silly fuss to make over some new fangled style of learning anyway," grumbled Billy, jamming his hat on his head. "Well, here's to my success and promotion. The stubborn authoress shall be hunted down." "Look out she doesn't mistake your attentions for intentions," called Brothers as a parting shot. "They say she's looking for a soul mate. Can write pretty romantic stuff, too, for a lady well along." Billy found the old Fleming mansion, set well back among its trees from the roadside. It had not always been a Fleming mansion. In fact, the name was newly adopted, the famous authoress having sprung from unknownness into sudden prominence. There was an evidence of deep study in her briefest articles, of wonderful practical discoveries which set the general student mind to thinking. Miss Helene Fleming was a woman of uncommon ability. So Billy Atkins went in unusual trepidation for that self confident young man up the flower bordered path to the door. The entrance was imposing. Billy rang. With no response to his ring, Billy tried the side door, bowing with assumed assuredness to the servant who opened it. Miss Fleming, the writer. Could he see her for just a moment? No, he would not send up his card, but this visit was important. Miss Fleming was too busily engaged to see callers. "But this," begged Billy, "is very urgent." "Miss Fleming will see no one." For a moment Billy camped hopefully upon the doorstep, but the door was firmly closed. Half angrily he made his way around to a rear door. A staring maid confronted him. "Was it Miss Fleming you wished to see, or de niece?" "Oh, either one," he answered hastily. It had occurred to him that the niece might be persuaded to act as envoy to the very difficult aunt, and Billy prided himself upon his persuasive powers with young women. "In de garden there," directed the maid. "She's out dere somewheres by de wall." So Billy started, whistling, to encircle the rear garden wall. High upon one post at last he discovered a huge yellow cat, and high upon the corresponding one perched a very pert looking young woman. Perhaps his first impression of pertness was caused by the girl's swinging heels, which clicked against the garden wall in tune to her humming voice, and to a certain rakish angle, maybe, of her bright red hat. "How do you do?" said Billy easily. After a brief scrutiny the girl stared over his head. Billy laughed. "Allow me," he explained, "to both apologize and introduce myself. I came primarily to see Miss Fleming, but " He paused eloquently. "Miss Fleming is not to be seen. Therefore, the matter being urgent, I take it upon myself to seek out and enlist the assistance of her young niece. Please." Billy held out an ingratiating hand. "Be a good girl and come down and help me out." The good girl! regarded him contemptuously, then turned and deliberately addressed the yellow cat. "Peter," she said, "how old do you suppose this callow youth takes us to be?" Peter continued the toilet of his paws. The youth referred to answered in self-defense. "From the length of your dress and the look in your eyes, I should take you to be about 16." "Dresses are worn very short this year," she returned. "Full grown women, in my experience," Billy told her, "are not found perched upon gate posts with cats for companions." "The companionship of a yellow cat," the girl answered vindictively, "is a relief after the persecution of a lot of brainless reporters." "Whew!" Billy whistled. "I'm one of those." The girl swung her heels. "I knew you were," she said quietly. Uninvited, Billy seated himself upon a bench facing the little figure on the wall. His face fell gloomily. "If you knew what this assignment meant to me," he said, sighing. "How I've counted upon it. Just because your aunt is so determined in her refusal to be interested, it will be a big thing for the man who accomplishes it. You could help me out, if you would. Just ask her to see me. That would be a simple thing for you to be, and it might mean so much to me." The girl wrinkled her brows perplexedly. "Do I understand this to be an affair of the heart?" she mocked. "If so, Miss Fleming might not be entirely obdurate. She has been quoted by one of your papers as searching for a soul mate. So if that is the case—" The girl slipped gracefully down from the wall. "The Lord forbid!" ejaculated Billy. "I'm pretty anxious for this interview, but not desperate enough to propose to a female encyclopedia in order to get it. Pardon me," he added hastily. "I forgot she was your aunt." The girl waved her hands. "Oh, don't mind us," she said sweetly. "We're used to reporters. That's why we like yellow cats." Billy's lugubrious face brightened visibly as he looked at her standing before him. "You are a good deal older than you seemed up there upon the wall," he conceded. The girl nodded. "Yes," she repeated seriously, "a good deal older." For a moment she stood studying his good natured, disappointed face, then impulsively seated herself at his side. "Maybe," she suggested, "just maybe, you know, I could answer a few of those questions of yours without disturbing my aunt." "You?" Billy's brows went up incredulously. She nodded. "I always go over my aunt's copy as it comes from a machine." Breathlessly Billy grabbed at pencil and paper. "It's a confounded subject to get at," he said apologetically, "but I'll do my best from these instructions." "Let's see," interrupted the girl, and in a moment it was her pencil that was flying across the pages of Billy's notebook. "There," she said at last, raising a sparkling, glowing face. "That covers the subject pretty well, I think. And now," with a childish movement she held the book behind her back, "promise before I give it to you, solemnly promise that you won't open this, won't read a word of it, till you are back in the office." "It's some trick then," said Billy, sadly. "I knew it was too good to be true." "Promise," demanded the girl. "My hand on it," she added quickly. Billy glanced into the teasing, tempting eyes, down at the little proffered hand, then surrendered. "Cross your heart," laughed the girl. "Cross my heart," said Billy. Over the soft hand he held close in his own he saw suddenly a woman's erect form approaching, a woman with fine, intelligent features and white, severely brushed hair. Blushing confusedly, the girl withdrew her hand, leaving in its place the reporter's book. "Auntie," she said, "I'll be with you directly." "Good bye," she added meaningly, as with new hopefulness Billy waited. "Good bye," the girl repeated, and, picking up her yellow cat, passed swiftly through the garden gate. Dazedly, Billy glanced after them. "The witch!" he muttered. "What nonsense has she scribbled in that book? Nothing to do with the case, of course. Billy Atkins, you've been cleverly disposed of, and just when you might have landed real copy." But there was his promise. Jove! He could still feel the firm clasp of that little hand. A very pleasant and heretofore unknown sensation trembled about the region of Billy's honest heart. "Jove!" he murmured again, and laughed softly. "What luck?" cried brothers, as Billy tried to pass unseen into the seclusion of his office. He must read her message alone. Half an hour later he rushed about wildly, his voice triumphant. "What luck?" he cried. "What luck? Well, just about the best ever. Full and comprehensive article. Personal touch, too, because it was written by the lady herself." "Oh, come off," jeered brothers, but Billy was back in his room, reading again a personal postscript. "You're to be congratulated," he read, "upon having this enlivening article direct from the pen of the author, for poor little I am the author. Aunt is only my amanuensis. I couldn't help it, could I, because you got us mixed? I'm doing this to make up for my disagreeable remark as to the preference for cats, and here's hoping for that promotion. Yours, Helene Fleming." Billy closed his eyes in smiling reminiscence, then rushed to the phone. "May I come out to night?" he begged his unseen listener, "to try at least to speak my gratitude?" There was silence for a moment. "Unless," he added humbly, "you still have a preference for yellow cats." "If," answered Miss Fleming sweetly, "you can overcome your aversion to a female encyclopedia." "Coming now," cried Billy. "Right o!" laughed the learned Helene. The hours seemed long to Billy while waiting for his watch to tell him that it was a proper hour to call. He took it out so often that once he thought it had stopped and put it to his ear to test it. But when the hand stood at 7:30, the time he had set for starting, he began a journey that should have taken twice the time he gave it. The days were still long, and he was informed that he would find the authoress where he had met her before, in the garden. There he went, and there we leave them. End of The Learned Miss Fleming, by Agnes G. Brogan.